Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, my custom is to welcome our guests because they're coming with a couple of things very expensive to me, and I want to honor them for that. First time, 24 hours a day has been offered to every one of us. What do we do with that 24 hours? Well, tell me a lot about you, and Dan is here to spend some of that quality stuff with us. The other is the journey. The journey created him. And so we want to honor him for allowing us the opportunity to hear and be a part of that journey. Because why? The journey gave him a couple of things that was deposited in his being, and we want access to those things. What are those things? Wisdom, insight, knowledge. All of these wonderful things that will help you and I to become better human spirits while we're here on this precious place called Earth. Dan, welcome to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you very much, Ken. It is an honor to be here, and I appreciate the intention and what we are all collectively creating with this show and with your other shows.
Thank you so much.
Journey.
Thank you. I usually toss this question, Dan, because as I mentioned to you, there's a couple of journeys that we're on, and we're going to investigate closer the first part of the journey, which is you. But the question that I usually ask is about the other part of the journey, the interdependent journey that we also embark on. How do you serve mankind?
With every breath is the answer that comes to mind first, because we're all here as, like you, Ken, are, and everyone watching or hearing our show is God's gift to the world. So I love this quote that I saw maybe about 8 days ago on probably Twitter or something. And it said, "Your life is God's gift to you. What you do with your life is your gift to God."
Yeah, powerful.
I love that. It's because it's so, I say that you are here as God's gift to the world, or you are God's instrument for miracles. So everything comes down to intention and awareness. So, and to me, that's really about connection. And what does connection mean? It means presence. So like right now, I want to be fully present with you as well as with everyone part of the gift that this conversation is, this connection is. So it's like, my sense is that we are all here to be of greater service to more people. And I call that extending God. And you could say that also means extending love. So with every interaction that each of us has, that is our ability to give the gift we are. So it's in the big things, but it's also in the small things. Like, just when you're walking or when you're interacting with people, just even giving love through a smile or saying, I appreciate you. Gratitude is maybe the most basic fundamental gift that we are sharing. I'm getting chills just reflecting on all this.
Yeah, they have some beliefs have in the greeting, Dan, the namaste, that call to that inner power that is us. And many other greetings have a call to that oneness and the power that is beyond the natural flesh that we are so wholly engaged in. And from time to time, we need to be reminded about the other aspect of who we are. And that is the purpose of the journey, I believe, Dan. It comes into our space to remind us that this natural realm, as beautiful as it is simply an illusion that originated all of it that we look at from one's thought. And one's right here is where it all comes. Because I grew up in the church, Dan. And I remember reading this book called the Bible, and it says, God said, "Let us make man in our image." Well, where did that come from? He had to imagine that. He had to think about it. And so as a result of the imagination, according to the Christian belief system and from the Bible's point of view, everything that we see here in this realm originated from one's imagination. And so it is very important, as Dan has said, the imagination is a powerful tool also that can use in our life. One of our customs here, Dan, as we embark on this wonderful conversation is to engage in this journey that we all walk in life from birth all the way through. When we are born, we are brought into our home, and the house is the first unit or the first location where you and I are going to reside for a few years, if you will. And within this format, we have a couple of people there called mom and dad. And we have extended individuals there that are part of the family. In this space right here, Dan, we're going to learn a couple of things: communication skills, habits, all kinds of wonderful things, processing our modus operandus, if you will, how we process in all these different things. What was your family unit?
My dad was a math professor, and so he valued education. That was a tremendous gift for me because anytime I misspoke something, he would correct my grammar. He would challenge me with words that I did not know and teach me how to find out what those words mean. I learned critical thinking from him as well. My mom was more the nurturer. My dad was more, my dad, he called himself agnostic because he felt like math was the only truth we could know for certain. But my dad was very spiritual. Like for him, nature was his cathedral. So I go outside and I'm just right there instantly with God, just in total communion because, omnipresence is the keynote for my life.
Yeah.
God is everywhere. There is nowhere God is not, including and especially within us as, like we were talking earlier, to me, like this body, quote unquote, is like the shirt that we discard at the end of the night or the end of the wink, like our life is over in the blink of an eye. So I learned it's almost like the caricature of like emotions, feelings was my mom, and my dad was like science, logic, but he was also present with nature. So I guess I could say I learned presence from my dad. It was a lovely integration from both of them.
Yeah, I think like when I look at the planet, and I think those individuals that are gifted with the mind to understand math and physics and the minutiae of things. When you look at the world, if you will, Dan, the earth is on an axis. If it moves a centimeter, all hell breaks loose. And so I think math in its pure state, if you will, or when you look at the world and nature in itself, because everything has certain boundaries and those are mathematically, you can find those out and stuff like that. But yeah, math, I love math. And what it does, I think it proves much more that there's a divine and there's no teacher. Like one of them being one of the greatest teachers I tell people is nature. Go spend some time there and you'll come out. Your ignorance will begin to disappear. As you're moving through life, Dan, and you're there with these two blessed folks, you have one that is able to help you to understand your emotional depthness, and your dad, the logical side, which is great. I think you mentioned critical thinking is a powerful tool that your dad has deposited in you. What was your relationship outside of family? How did you, with all of that information that you're getting from mom and dad, how did you communicate to those on the outside of your family?
That was where my trauma came into my life. I had health issues as a child. I was allergic to like mold and dust and cat hair and whatever. And I also had asthma. So like in the normal physical education classes, I was struggling. Like if we had to climb a rope or something, I would maybe climb 3 feet or 4 feet and I would be having to breathe heavily and maybe I was even coughing or whatever. And I couldn't exert myself physically without going into this like asthma effect. So as a result of those health challenges, I was usually among the last 3 people who were chosen for, team A or team B in the sporting side of physical education classes that was required when I was growing up. So I grew up feeling like nobody wanted me. I was unlovable.
Yeah.
And I was undeserving of love. And I was afraid of people too. Like I was always the child where the teacher knew that I knew the answer to any question he or she asked, but I was afraid to volunteer because then if I was called upon, then I might stutter, I might say something silly and I would be laughed at. And then so that would happen and the teacher would say, Dan, what's the answer? And I would stutter and say something silly and I would be laughed at. So
Yeah.
I was really shy I was in my shell until my second semester junior year of high school. I took photography classes, and then all of a sudden this camera was like my shield. It was my
Hmm.
protection. I could go anywhere and people like this would protect me from people. And also I started to learn personal development, and I don't know how this happened. It just kind of maybe spontaneously, but I started repeating over and over again, think positive, think positive, think positive, think positive. And I rewrote the wiring in there.
Mm.
And then suddenly, like in college, I minored in journalism and I majored in speech communication with an emphasis in radio, TV, film.
Yeah.
Because I love music so much, so I became a DJ. And then I was still protected from people
Hmm.
because I was behind the microphone. But then out of college, I got jobs in newspapers and suddenly thrusted into this world where I have to stand eyeball to eyeball with the governor of my state, and I have
Yeah.
to be the one who controls the conversation. So that required me to raise my consciousness, come into who I am, be comfortable in my skin. So it was even in college, I was in a fraternity. So I got involved with like student government, and I became the fraternity was Delta Chi, and that was like a leadership fraternity. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
everything, it's a natural unfolding.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's amazing, Dan. I tell people one of the concept behind Threads of Enlightenment is that threads govern our lives.
I love that.
It really does. And it'll start, and that's why I usually start the conversation from the beginnings of our beginnings, if you will. Because in that location right there, Dan, is where the beginnings of the threads manifest. And those threads are there walking with us through life, and we make decisions and actions manifest in our life to bring a lot of those threads, if you will, to fruition in our life as we are moving towards quote unquote adulthood, if you will.
Yes.
And it don't matter how many dark places we go to, those threads are still in there, Dan. It's amazing as I interview people and I notice these insights, if you will. So here you are, Dan, because we see, and from your conversation, you are actually growing up, if you will. You're maturing from this individual that was in a shell, if you will. And the shell piece, Dan, is usually that's how we start our survival journey. It's just we have to find a way to survive. And so we are pretty smart beings. And so we'll take a look and see what fits into our personality and we'll adapt it. And as we are surviving and we're moving through and growing and so forth, we are able to tap in and come out of it. You are able to tap in. I want to ask you something that you mentioned. You said you don't know where it came from, but that is intense though, because it is the piece that began to move you through your life about positive thoughts. Can you recollect, Dan, anything in hindsight as to where that seed came from? Because that is, again, it is a powerful declaration that you said that you found. And to find that specificness of positive thought and thinking positive, where did you pick it up from?
I don't remember anything from the outside. So I guess I have a feeling. This is just in, looking back at my memories, which are
Yeah.
incomplete.
Yeah.
But I guess I feel like, well, when I was about 13 years old, that's when I feel like my lotus flower started to open.
Mm-hmm.
Like I started to become interested in like extrasensory perception.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to read people's thoughts. So I was starting to read books. Actually, okay, so I didn't even remember that until I started to talk about this thought about that. So I guess I was reading books and I was kind of grabbing everything I could about how to come into my power, stand
Yeah.
on my own, fulfill I didn't call it like I talk about, we are here to live our divine design,
Hmm.
duty, destiny, Dharma. And this was me sort of beginning to come into that for myself, my divine design. So I guess I was reading all these books I could find, and I was talking to people who might have an answer for me. So I don't remember anything specific, but I'm guessing it might have been some kind of book
Yeah, because it has
about,
to
yeah,
has to come from somewhere, Dan. It has to the birth or the seed has to be planted somehow, whether it's a book, a conversation, and stuff like that, because that is a powerful seed that got into you. Because as a young 13-year-old, young adult now, beginning to practice, if you will, mantras, because that's what you're doing,
yes.
and you're a 13-year-old and not really realizing that you're practicing mantras, that you are rewiring the brain, the thought patterns from negative to positive. This is powerful stuff that a 13-year-old is doing without really the inner knowledge of saying I'm purposely doing it, if you will. So here you are, man. You got in front of, you graduated and you're in front of the governors and all these folks, and you have to lead the conversation. And a few minutes ago, you were saying this guy was hiding from the conversation. And I know because you've been dabbling within the personal development stuff and you didn't know you were doing it. And you are here now, graduating, and you're in front of these individuals. That transition, talk to us about that transition, Dan, because a lot of people are stuck there and they don't
Yeah.
know how to make it, because of fearfulness, rejection, all the other dark thinkings that keep us in the shadows, like they were doing to this young man as you were talking about, kept him in the shadows. How did you step out into the limelight?
I think it was my senior year. I took speech communication. I think it might have been required, maybe,
Hmm.
because I couldn't imagine myself, standing up in front of people and talking to them. I think I had to do that, and somehow I liked it. And also, that's another one of those threads. I love your idea about the threads of enlightenment, Ken. And by the way, just to add to that, if I may, there is this notion of the golden thread that
Hmm.
is always in each scene, each experience you have. There's this golden thread, and you can follow that, and that will lead you to the next thread. So you don't have to steer off course. You can
Yeah.
go the direct route. And I love that idea too. So I took an honors English class my
Hmm.
senior year, and the teacher, her name was Mrs. Welty. I still remember her because she was one of those, we're always given our teachers, our
Yeah.
guides who lead us in the right direction, or, God acts through these
Yes.
agents who steer us in the right course for our lives. And Mrs. Welty really liked my writing, and she, like I would get the A with the circle around it, and you have a great storytelling or great imagination or whatever. I don't remember what it was, but that really encouraged me. It's like, wow, somebody is affirming that I have something good in me.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, because I saw that in her pointing out that, hey, wow, this isn't all, ugly and nobody wants him, that there's something good in here. That was what allowed me to turn around to experience that in myself more.
That is that synchronicity that we talk about, I mentioned in Thread, the
Yes.
synchronicity of our life when we look back, because sometimes I enjoy looking back at some of the dark places, because I tell people most of us are trained to react at the dark spaces than as and recoil from it. Oh my God, not realizing that we are absolutely 100% equipped to handle it. The
Yes.
wisdom, the knowledge, the insights, all of the stuff that we need is sitting right in there. And we're 100% more than enough. And so I tell them, don't run from it, run to it with the knowledge and the insight that it's there to teach you something, and you need to extract something from it. And you will extract it faster than if you were retreating. It will take you years versus months when you attack it and get in there, get your hands dirty, if you will. So you guys are listening to us, don't be afraid of your dark times. Sit down, begin to bring some tools into your life to assist you to get there. Meditation, imagination usage, all of these things, as Dan is saying, talking about, the right thinking, positive thinking, rewire your brain. Here you are, man. You got the training. You're doing all of these things. You're beginning to blossom, as you said, the lotus flower, a great example. And you're moving through your life growing. How was Dan doing? You're getting glimpses, if you will, of, just touches from God, if you will, that you're okay. You're not that individual that was back there. How was Dan doing as a young man with all of these major changes in his life, and he's moving in his life? What was his intention or intentionality in living at that time?
I like how you phrased that question of the intentionality of living. It was okay. So I thought I was going to be a DJ for my whole life and just play music because I love music so much.
Mm-hmm.
And then even in radio, I evolved into being the public affairs director, and I had a talk show, and I had my own radio show where I would play my own stuff. And that was, I guess you could say, the leadership aspect of Dan coming to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I found jobs easily from college in newspapers. And it was where that was my training ground for becoming an author. And even the leadership, like I was a reporter for 6 years, and then I became assistant managing editor. And then I was like the congressman in my area would come, and I would sit in the managing editor's office and behind the desk. And, he and I, the congressman and I, would talk one-on-one for about an hour and a half or 15 minutes, whatever. And to me, that just felt like where I belonged.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the way you're introducing this example of how life works, where like the experiences, I mean, it's called your Dharma.
Yes.
And your choice
Absolutely.
in life is, do I allow my Dharma or do I resist it?
Mm-hmm.
That's this moment. Am I allowing or am I resisting my Dharma? And it's like riding the horse in the direction it's going. Your Dharma will have its way, and your choice is, do I flow with it or do I struggle and try to steer it and fall off the horse and I'm dragged along? Do you want to take the direct route, which is like, as you say, Ken, running courageously into the challenge?
Yeah.
Because it's there to serve you, because everything that happens in your life is there for your benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And when you recognize, okay, I'm having this adversity, and you don't run from it, it's like, no, why did I create this? How is this here to serve me? Or this is like a notification on my phone. Just had a car accident. Okay, well, that's telling me that I wasn't centered. I wasn't grounded. I was pushing myself too much. I was so stressed by my work. I didn't have any outlet to. So this journey that so I guess I wasn't consciously aware of this, but my journalism career taught me how to write very well. And also, like, I had 15 minutes to interview, whomever, and I had to, in that time, get to the heart of the issue. So that's like, what a skill for a coach to have, where instantly I have to connect so deeply that I can get to the heart of the issue in the client or in anyone. And this was life giving me the skills to fulfill my purpose.
Yeah, I believe that's how it's designed. I use this story, especially when we come to a topic like this, Dan. That when you present, and I always tell my audience, when you find that coach or that individual, that guide, I like the terminology guide, because they're basically extracting stuff in you that you have that you may not be aware of. And so how do they do that? They level questions to you. Again, and I mentioned that I grew up in the church, and I love how Jesus did that, and he kind of illustrated this same principle. He shows up at the pool of Bethesda, it tells us, and there are thousands of people there, or hundreds of people there, waiting to be healed, because apparently there's a customer angel came down from what we read from the data. And so whoever gets in there first they got their healing. And so he is a crippled individual, and Jesus shows up and he inquires about him. Who is this guy? Somebody began to tell him, oh, this is indeed been crippled since he was birthed and all this kind of stuff. And so Jesus looks at him and says, hey, strange question. He's hanging out at the pool, waiting. He wants, but Jesus had to locate him, Dan, because Jesus said to him, do you want to be healed? I'm like, huh? He said, but it was a profound question. He had to locate him and see did he settle? Was he comfortable? Was he okay with where he was? Did he want to move beyond his comfort zone? Was he willing to do what is necessary to get to the other side? And the man made this powerful declaration. And in the declaration, Jesus saw it and he said, yeah, get up. He says to him, while I am trying, that was the key. He was crippled, but he was still in motion towards that goal that he was going after. Stagnation is one of the enemies of personal development, I tell people. But he was pushing towards that. And Jesus looked at him and he saw something that he had. He had the belief system to believe that he was going to get there at one point or some point. And Jesus says to him, rise, pick up your bed and walk. And the man got his stuff and walked. And so when you come into someone's life, then because of your training you have 15 minutes, you have to learn how to divvy up that 15 minutes. You have to learn how to get to the root cause of the problem. And corporate America called it root cause analysis. And so Jesus had to get to the root. He had to get some background, find out, and then he was able to get to the man. And so you are doing the same principles. Within that 15 minutes, you were trained to learn the importance of the right questions to extract the right information to move through and get that interview, if you will, to print, as they say. So here you are, Dan, you're moving through, man. You're watching yourself grow and you're enjoying the process. Talk to me, because there's always some of those darknesses that just pops up. It's just part of life. Talk to us about your popping up of darkness that kind of like really made you aware of the journey and the principles that were necessary that you began to start to put it all together.
Okay. I guess what's coming to mind is how when I started as a DJ, I was like hiding behind the microphone, and then the radio station, people couldn't see me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I evolved into newspapers where I was hiding behind the keyboard. And I mean, like if I had a column, maybe my picture would be in the column, but most people didn't know who I am. So I still was safe, protected from people. But then after my newspaper, I like how, like, when you're done, whatever that thing is in your life has served its purpose, then it just falls away. And so, like, I ended my newspaper career and with my first book being published. And then all of a sudden, I moved to Sedona, Arizona, which was my dream place to live since 1997. And I moved out here in July of 99. And now all of a sudden, like, I'm standing in front of people and I'm reading from my book. And now it's like here I am. There's no hiding behind anything. And I have to, well, that's interesting. I use the word have to, but another frame on that is I get to be in front of people and be comfortable as the leader who's at least pretending to be fearless. But I guess I don't know. I guess I still have probably like nerves or whatever if I'm doing public speaking. I mean, podcasting is easier, the virtual stuff. And I think it was, I still used to have, like you talked about the programs and our programmers. I love how you distinguish that because they're programming people to sort of fit with the, status quo, which is really where no one stands out and where you're settling, like you just talked about, Ken.
Yeah.
It's
called being normal, Dan. They're trying to put us in the fence that says you have to behave normal. Anything outside of normal is worthy of criticism and all the other stuff. And so that's what we're pushing against, that normal fence.
Yeah, like I have to paint between the lines, and it's a very narrow line. That's acceptable behavior.
Yeah.
It's like you just have to stand in the corner and not stand out, not stand up, which means not lead and not inspire others and help them. Like for me, it was Joe Vitale, Ken, who reach down into what I call the muckety muck,
Hmm.
or actually I call it the matrix of fear and limitation, like the real matrix. And
Yeah.
he pulled me out of that. I interviewed him on April 5th, 2003, and he was so inspired by the interview that he had the book Spiritual Marketing,
Hmm.
and he called our interview Advanced Spiritual Marketing. So it was, I guess I still carried, even though I have this book out, which was called Experience Unconditional Love this year, and I'm, standing up and teaching and, leading seminars or whatever, I still had this fear of what will people think of me. So like I hesitated to put myself out there, like recording videos on YouTube and everywhere else. But then I just started to do it because I had to do it. And then, 7,000, 8,000 videos later or whatever, that's easy and second nature for me. And even, doing podcasts of my own and all these things, that's been easy. But still standing in front of people, I guess this, like virtual, just seemed
Yeah.
safer to me. And I guess ultimately it was, to answer your question even more directly, Ken, about like the dark areas that I still saw. This was back in, like, I moved to Sedona in July of 99. And
Hmm.
I don't remember, this was probably within the first year or two. So, whatever it was, then maybe it was. I created a seminar, which I was calling Let Love In, a talk I was giving, I should say.
Yeah.
And I was so excited to give this talk, and I promoted it and I put myself out there, and nobody showed up for it.
Hmm.
And so I concluded the story that I told myself, which didn't serve me at all, was again that old, I'm
Yeah.
unlovable, nobody wants me, I'm not deserving. And so I held to that story, and that's where I gave my attention. And so I didn't put myself out there again for like 10 years or something. I really held back. And because the virtual was easy and I found success there. And so I guess I'm seeing this to myself. I'm recognizing I still haven't done much in the way of public speaking in a big
Yeah.
way since then. I mean, I did a few book signings or whatever. But yeah, I really, it's almost like because I was so crushed, I was so attached to making a difference to people, and
Yeah.
nobody wanted that. So I
Yeah.
internalized that as they didn't want me,
Yeah.
instead of just the reality is I was marketing myself ineffectively.
Yeah.
It's
It is.
simple.
I wanted people, and the reason why I ask these questions is so that people can see that in the journey, as we walk through it, we don't overcome everything all of a sudden. It's a journey. That's what it is. I mean, there are aspects of my journey that I'm still uncovering, behaviors and mindsets or hidden programs, if you will, that are still there. And we thought that the cleaner initially had took all of this stuff out, but there's still a little trace of things inside of it. And we're forgetting that, you need more of a deeper clean. And that is what the journey is going in deeper, on excavating, if you will, to a deeper area. And you go and you get deeper and you come out. And what's the purpose of that? Is so that you will become you, the true you, the who you are. And that thread, as I mentioned, the people, that thread will follow you. And that survival thread is still lingering. We see it inside of, as Dan talks about his story. But I have a bunch of those things that are still lingering in me. That a situation will come up, Dan, and I will say, my God, I thought I handled that already. And I realize, no, I just scratched the surface. I need more insight as to what are the remaining parts of that program that still reside within me, that was hidden, that was not accessible to me until that particular situation brought it up and make it accessible to me. So I know, hey, I have to do some spring cleaning, as they say. But that's normal, Dan. I think most people are chasing perfection and don't understand the journey has nothing to do about perfection. It just has to do with learning. This journey is not about perfection. It's simply about learning and learning and learning, and continually learning until we move to the next dimension. And I'm sure when we get into the other side, we will begin to start learning again, because we know nothing on the other side yet. So this thing is all about learning and learning and learning. And so don't be harsh on yourself. Love yourself. be kind to you. Watch what you say. I tell people, watch what you're saying because you are listening. Dan learned that lesson at 13 years old, and he began to say things that caused him to listen and caused him to change his life. Here you are, Dan. You've written a book. You're coaching folks to help them. Talk to me. We talked about that transition that I talked about, the precious transition that takes place in one's life when we serve. Invite us to one of those moments because I want those listeners to, because we're going to send you guys to get Dan's books, get everything that you can. And I take my advice on this. Books has saved my life, many books. But how you approach the book, Dan, is what I'm trying to educate people. Just don't pick up a book and think. No, prepare yourself, prepare your being, learn to get your tea, your cup of tea or coffee, get your nice, because what are you doing when you're preparing your space? You're bringing your mind into a certain space where they have theta waves and all these different things that you can do. And your mind will receive the data in those pages, and those pages, those data will become life in your spirit and your soul and your subconscious mind and get you out of where you're at. Invite us, Dad, to one of those beautiful transitions from that dark perspective to the other. And what it did, I know what it does to the servant. It keeps us humble, keeps us even more humble because we recognize we didn't have much to do here. We just ask a few questions, but we get to witness greatness, if you will. Invite us to one of those times, Dad.
Yeah, I appreciate that question and how you're approaching the gift within the adversity, Ken,
Yeah.
because that's very beautiful. When I was writing, or when it was writing, it felt like it was coming, like a download. It was just, I had to, like, I was recording the book, the first book that I wrote. I'm getting chills just being here with that again. On Experience Unconditional Love this year, I was reflecting on how it was like an insight that it was ready for me to see that when I was in high school, that when the bullies were pointing out my flaws to make fun of me, to get people to laugh at me, the recognition was that they were steering attention away from them and onto me.
Yep.
So that they wouldn't have their flaws exposed and people laughing at or making fun of them. I saw that I had to experience, so what is the purpose behind that happening? I saw that I had to experience low self-esteem myself to be in communion with somebody who has a self-loathing or doesn't love themselves or thinks that they are unlovable or unworthy or undeserving of success or love, happiness. I had to live through it myself, and I had to come out of that to be able to meet those people or us where they are. And even like to your point about being a servant leader, as all of us are destined to be, I was on a consulting call with, his name is Mitch Axelrod. He's pretty well known in some circles. And he shared with me that according to a survey that he saw, like 90% of women have issues with low self-esteem. They admitted to that. And I think men was like 88%. I mean, it's so pervasive.
Yeah.
Like I call it scarcity, fear, lack consciousness. It's like, to me, it's like the virus in the program of collective consciousness. And I see it as like, I was just even thinking, this actually came to me this morning as I was sort of doing my work in the morning, that what if life was breathed into you by God so that you breathe life into everything you are doing and everyone with whom you are connecting, so that they can breathe life into everything they are doing and everyone with whom they are connecting. In other words, we're all here to be of greater service, and that by focusing on, like I say, you are God's gift to the world, by you focusing on how can I be that gift, be more of that gift, and give that gift to more people, that's your source of happiness, joy, fulfillment, well-being, peace of mind, success, prosperity, impact, contribution, meaning. That's why we are here.
That's our assignment, Dan. I
It
tell
is.
people that we are not here to come to do a job. Everyone has an assignment, and you laid it out right there as to what that assignment consists of. And I always tell people, find your assignment, and trust me, they have lied to you. Your assignment will be able to sustain you financially too. Don't let them talk you out of it. And so, because most people don't think so, but that's not so. The designer has put in place, if he had given you that ability, that means it would be malpractice of God to not have that ability to be able to sustain you. And I don't believe that he's one that moves in malpractice behavior thinking. And so then the problem is not him then, and it's you and I. We have to trust and believe that all is going to be all right, as they say. So all you guys have been listening to us, man. And Dan has afforded us access to him. And many of you are in pain. Many of you not sure what's going on in this world right now, where you belong. And that's okay. We've all been there. And we don't want you to be critical of yourself. One of the great things that Dan had said that he had in the onset of his life was a gift that was given to him by his dad. That is critical thinking skills, the way by which we process data. I have an individual in front of me that knows how to do this thing. Dan, I apologize for this. I thought I shut all of these things down. Dan has the ability to critical think. He knows how to investigate things by the questions that he asks. We pause there. We stop there for a minute. We pause there. And I stopped there because I wanted you guys to know his capability, his skill set. And his skill set is to locate who you are and where you are. I want to invite you guys to come. We're going to put all of his links so that you can have access to Dan. It is imperative. You are in pain. It's okay. It's okay. I feel your pain. You are lost. It's okay. I know where you're at. I've been there. Dan knows where you're at. He's been there. But as servants, we are now willing and able. Why? Because we have gone through some stuff. Low self-esteem. Let me tell you how precious you are. They have been lying to you and me for a long time. Their industry on this planet, Dan, that cannot survive unless we are, because of our uniqueness. They would not been able to solve a crime ever unless they actually saw it. If they didn't have our fingerprint, if they didn't have our certain distinguished. I am distinguished from you, Dan, and every billion old people because of this fingerprint of mine. Voice recognition, face recognition. These are all industries. They're making billions of dollars on how unique you are. The law enforcement industry could not exist without your uniqueness. Don't let them lie to you. Facebook, all these places are using your uniqueness to make money. You are one of a kind. When you die, you no longer exist on this plane here. That's how precious you are. Don't let anyone tell you any different. And because you are so precious, they're trying to keep you ignorant of it, because once you are not ignorant of it, you're going to stop buying some of their stuff too. So we want you guys to have access to Dan because he is capable. And I don't like bringing people that are not capable of leading you on this show because I know why you need them. Dan, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment, man.
Thank you, Ken. It's an honor to be with everyone here along this journey. And it's like they say, it's not the journey is the destination. The adversity is the journey. Yeah. That's what your Threads of Enlightenment are. It's been such a blessing to be with you, Ken. Thank you for everything that you do. You're a gift, and I honor that gift that you are.
And I honor you again, Dan, for your presence. And I thank you for your openness to share who you are so that we can learn, so that we can become better and improve ourselves and our relationship with others while we're here on this planet. Again, thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you for watching as well and listening to us.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.